Hi guys, it's week 7 of Sisters in Shape, Adventures in Competing. So we're 5 weeks out from the competition and feeling pretty good, starting to lean out and really excited about the competition in general. So this week's topic is exercise. I've talked about exercise once before, and as I mentioned, I break it down into kind of 4 groups within each workout that I do. So there's the warm-up, the weightlifting, the cardio, and the cool down. Last time I talked about the warm-up and a bit of the weightlifting or the workout. So I'm going to just kind of expand on the workout portion and talk about cardio and the cool down a little bit this week. So for the workout, last time I talked about some rep ranges and splits and how to kind of approach that whole thing. So this week I wanted to talk to you a bit about the different types of things that you can do within your weight training in order to get the desired results. So what are some of the things that you can kind of aim to do with weight training? You can be building muscle. You might be trying to lean out. You might even be trying to lose a little bit of muscle. I'm a very muscular person. I put on muscle very easily. I'm at a point where there's certain areas of my body that I want to continue to build muscle, like my shoulders, but areas like my quads and even my lower back, certain areas where I really don't want to continue to put on muscle and I just want to define it. So there's different techniques that you can use in order to do that. To put on muscle, your rep range that you're looking at is going to be very low or moderate. So the lower rep ranges, so anywhere from 1 to 6, you're looking at power moves. And those are the fast twitch muscle fibers. Those are the sprinters and the power lifters and the Olympic lifters. So obviously these people are very muscular, but it's a dense fibrous muscle that does a specific job and it'll make you very strong. It's not necessarily going to be an aesthetic muscle, so it's not the bodybuilding muscle that you're looking at. It's very functional. If you go up just a little bit, if you go into the 6 to 12 range, that's where you're getting into the more aesthetic muscle. It's a little bulkier, a little more defined, and it's less about moving the most amount of weight in a single movement and more about getting a lot of volume in there and a lot of blood, and that'll rebuild. And you're using both the fast twitch and the slow twitch muscle fibers, so you're kind of hitting it from all angles and getting the best of both worlds. If you go higher than that, if you go 12 to 20, even higher, some people do, you're getting into a more aerobic kind of exercise, and this is where circuits come into play and things like that. So if you're aiming to lose weight and you've already got a lot of muscle on you and you're just looking to tone and define, I hate both those words, but the higher rep ranges are really going to do it for you. Normally I'm very much against women saying, oh, I just want to tone. It's a valid point if you already have the muscle. If you don't have muscle, you can't tone. So if you're trying to look fit and look like these girls in these magazines and you're worried about getting bulky, diet is going to take care of that. You need to focus on building muscle, so stay in the 8 to 12 rep range. And then once you have the amount of muscle that you want, then you can switch and work on toning it and really defining it and getting those cut lines and working on your abs and all that kind of fun stuff that us girls like to focus on. That's the toning. It comes after. Okay? Don't buy into this whole I just want to get toned. It doesn't exist. That's my little rant for this week. So other things that you can do within your workout is you can try to kind of combine cardio and weight training, and it's something that I really like to do because I really don't like cardio, at least not the slow steady state cardio. So what I do is you can either do active rest periods. So that would be doing a working set of weight training, and then you might skip rope for a minute, or do mountain climbers, or burpees, which are very intense active rest. And that just keeps your heart rate up throughout your weight training session so that you're never really resting, you're never bringing your heart rate down, and it'll burn a lot of calories, and you don't even necessarily need to do cardio at that point. The other thing that you can do is you can do everything in a circuit. So this would be just taking very small rest between, or even no rest between 4 to 6 sets of exercise, and then taking a longer rest period at the end. So that has a similar effect to active rest, where you're keeping your heart rate high for an extended period of time, similar to cardio. You're going to burn a lot of calories, but it's not something that you want to do if you're looking to build muscle. That comes with this whole leaning down, trying to define the muscle, trying to bring the most blood into it, get a really good pump, all that kind of stuff. That's what circuits are really good for. So I'm starting to move into that now with 5 weeks left. I'm starting to do things like triple sets, so where you do 3 sets of exercises back to back with no rest in between, and then you rest for 2 minutes at the end of that and do your next set. And as the weeks go on, I'll add to that. I'll start doing 4 and then 5 and adding active rest to those as well. So that's kind of the workout portion. Then on to the fun cardio. There's 2 main types of cardio that people do for contest prep and for general fitness. And those are high intensity interval training, or high intensity cardio, and LIS, which is low intensity steady state cardio. Low intensity steady state is the typical bodybuilder cardio, where you're walking on an incline for an hour. The step mill is really popular. Not the elliptical, but the air one, where you're kind of looking like a gazelle. I can't remember what it's called, but that one's really popular. And what these all have in common is they really fire your glutes and your hamstrings. So walking on an incline in the step mill, and anything where your knee is being brought up and you're pushing your leg down, is really going to fire your glutes. And that's why most people who are in competition prep use those types of cardio to try to get even more of that definition and really bring out your leg muscles. The issue with steady state cardio is it works very similar to cutting calories. It can have a negative impact on your metabolism. It's great at burning fat while you're on the treadmill, but once you step off it, that calorie burn goes away. So you really, the number that it says on the treadmill that you burn, that's all you're burning. So that brings me to HIIT, or high intensity interval training. And what's nice about this is you can work out for a much shorter period of time, and you might not burn that many calories, but when you step off that treadmill, you've amped up your system so much and you've fired your central nervous system that you're going to keep on burning calories for hours afterwards, and it's called an afterburn effect. So it's good to kind of combine these two. High intensity interval training, when you're doing as much weight training as a competitor is, can be very hard on your nervous system because it uses a lot of the same processes. It uses those fast twitch muscle fibers, and it really fires your central nervous system. So you do have to be careful that you're not overtaxing your system. This is one of the dangers of overtraining, not in that you're going to burn your muscles out, but your central nervous system might be overtaxed. You're going to be very, very tired. You're not going to have the energy, and you might be a little cranky. So just pay attention to your body. It'll let you know if you're doing too much. And then maybe you can move more towards the low steady state cardio instead, which is much less taxing on your nervous system, but also much more boring. So some of the high intensity interval training that I do is something called dead mill runs, which I got from Joe Donnelly. You turn the treadmill off, you grip the front of it, and then you manually push the belt back with your feet as hard as you can for 20 seconds. Then you stop and you die. And you breathe really heavily for about 40 seconds, and about 2 seconds before you have to do it again, you stand up and you prep yourself. So that's probably the hardest one. And high intensity intervals need to be kept short because they're so stressful for the body. So you'll only do 10 to 20 minutes of that. Some other things that you can do are treadmill sprints or outdoor sprints, where you can either do it by distance or by time. I like to do 30 seconds on and 30 seconds off on the treadmill. Or a bike is a really good option because you can very easily switch between intensities. So you don't have to necessarily go any faster, but you just up that intensity a whole lot, like right up to the max. Go as hard as you can for 20 seconds and then just pedal very softly for 40 seconds. There's also things like Tabata training, which is 4 minutes where you do 20 seconds as hard as you possibly can and then 10 seconds off, and then you repeat that 8 times, which is great if you're just trying to add a little bit into your session, or you need an extra little bit of calorie burn at the end of your training, but isn't really enough if you're looking for a significant calorie burn. So that's those are the main areas of cardio that I do. That brings me to the cool down. Cool down for me, I don't really do, walking or bringing my heart rate down. I kind of let my body do that on its own. Some people really like it, but it's optional. It's not as big a deal as the industry thought it was, say 5 years ago. There's been a lot of research around it, and you don't necessarily need to do a jog to cool down or something like that. But what you do need to do is you need to stretch. And this can be static stretching or dynamic, but static stretching tends to have a bigger impact on your recovery as long as you don't overdo it. One of the issues that you have if you train really, really hard is that you're breaking down the muscle fibers. You're putting these micro tears in your muscles, which is what makes them bigger. Your body heals them, and it heals them bigger in order to facilitate that load because it assumes you're going to do it again. So it wants to be bigger and stronger for the next time. But when you already have all of those tears in your muscle fibers, and then you go and you stretch, you can stretch a lot more because you're warm. But if you go too far, you've already got all these tears in your muscle and you're just stretching them further apart, and you can really injure yourself, and you can actually hinder your results and hinder your recovery. So when you're stretching, make sure that you're not pushing to the point of pain. You just want to feel a nice stretch and feel that muscle release a little bit, and then you're good. You don't need any more than that. I do like to do multiple different stretches and make sure I'm hitting the muscle group that I've worked from all angles, especially when I do legs, because if you miss one, you'll notice it, especially things like the sides of your quads or your glutes. If you didn't hit them in the right way in order to get the muscle that you were working on, it can be painful the next day. So just be aware of what you worked and try to make sure you're stretching the muscles that you worked the hardest. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Next week is going to be lifestyle, and I'll talk about all the fun things that I'm doing now that it's crunch time for the competition, 5 weeks left. And until then, eat clean, train dirty, and think nerdy. Bye.